What's your reaction to the latest Siena College poll?
Well, it's very exciting for us, to continuously see that we are up double digits on favorables for the Republican nomination. This has been consistent since we announced. So I think it's a matter of us and the way we're able to connect with voters, kind of the grassroots strategy that we've had. Similar, Jim, when we met in front of the Dick's Sporting Goods Open, that's what we've tried to do all around the state, whether it's the strategy has been, let's go to mass gathering places, whether it's county fairs or whether it's NASCAR event or Dick's Sporting Goods Open, and meet as many New Yorkers and talk about as many of the issues that are important to them as possible. Another really good number from that poll, which we really liked, was looking at where Democrats actually stand on the candidates. Now, 26% of Democrats find my candidacy favorable. And I think that's because we're really able to clearly message about what crime has been doing all around the state, what more choice in schools will actually do for parents. So it's not a matter of us sacrificing our Republican ideals or conservative ideals, if you will, but I think it's a matter of how our communication is able to get through to voters.
Yeah. Another thing I found pretty striking was that the numbers were across the board were quite similar between Astorino and Zeldin, and both of them had really high numbers in the don't know.
Yeah.
What does that say about the degree to which, people are even aware of their candidacies?
It's a great question. That's been pretty consistent, where 60+% of Republican voters don't necessarily know who Rob or the congressman from Long Island is. I think what it means is we've just been doing a better job of getting out there and talking to as many Republicans as possible. That number, it's kind of, for us, has been around somewhere between 25 to 35% or so. So it's been less than about half of what Mr. Astorino and Lee's numbers are. I don't know. It's tough for me to speak to why voters don't know them. I do think that our strategy of getting out there, meeting as many New Yorkers as possible, talking about their issues, I think has been effective in educating people about what our policy platforms would be.
What do you make of him constantly using the term presumptive? Clearly, he has lined up a lot of party chair support and the like, and I believe some other elected officials are from the Republican side are backing him. But wouldn't one think that if you're presumptive, that you would have higher polling numbers?
We have a saying now in our campaign: presume nothing, just win. So for us, it's a matter of, we don't want a few people in a back room in Albany deciding who the Republican nominee is. I want the 2.9 million registered Republicans around the state to decide who the Republican nominee is. So I actually think, since they've been rolling out the word presumptive nominee, it's actually helped us and helped our candidacy, because you have more New Yorkers that look and say, hey, I don't even know if I want to vote for you or I don't want to vote for you. But the one thing I know is I don't want a candidate anointed by a couple of party bosses. So ever since they've rolled that out, we've really been able to play that against them and say, hey, look, you know what? Take a look at all the candidates. Certainly take a look at us, but take a look at all the candidates, because we really think a primary is the best way to go, instead of just handing somebody the nomination.
Yeah. Do you draw any parallels between this situation and the situation facing Donald Trump in 2016 or even 2015, when he first announced and much of the party establishment was against him?
Well, certainly, I think a lot of voters know my connection to the president, and I've obviously known him for 25 plus years, had the opportunity to work for him for 4 years in the White House. So I do, draw a few parallels. Obviously, not necessarily on that level, but I do certainly see the parallels in some of the party leaders saying, no, we don't want him, and the grassroots populists saying, no, you know what, this is somebody who's speaking not just to us and asking for our votes, but speaking with us. So I do see the parallels there, and that's certainly something that we've talked about, and I've actually had the opportunity to speak directly with President Trump about.
Great. So now I'm sure a number of people will say the reason you're known so well, whether favorably or unfavorably, has a lot to do with your father's name recognition. What do you say about that?
Well, look, I think there's no doubt about it that, the Giuliani name, it is recognizable, and that very well may weigh into all this. For me, I think the best thing that I can do is talk to voters about what I learned from my father, what I learned working for President Trump, and what I would do as governor. And if I get some name recognition because of the greatest mayor in the history of New York City, then you know what? Then I'm a proud son. So for me, I'm happy to accept that. With that being said, though, I want to go out and earn the trust of voters. So I look at it this way, right? You can look at the California recall late last year, and there certainly were a lot of people with high name recognition. You could even say that Caitlyn Jenner was somebody that had high name recognition. It didn't show through in the polling. For us, I think the reason why it's showing through in the polling is because we're presenting ideas which are going to reduce crime, hopefully reduce property taxes and income taxes, reduce regulation, and give parents more choice in education.
So obviously your favorable numbers were much higher than Mr. Zeldin and Mr. Astorino, but so were your unfavorable numbers. Should that cause concern for Republican voters in the primary?
Well, I think in so many ways that we have, our unfavorable numbers maybe a little bit higher than Lee or Rob. I think in many ways they have the same unfavorables. I think a lot of candidates just don't know about them yet. I should say a lot of voters don't know about them yet. So look, it's certainly something that we're addressing, but I'm an optimistic guy. So I like to look at the favorables, and for us to see that 26% of Democrats find us favorable, that we have a double-digit lead still in the favorables for the Republican nomination, a double-digit lead across all parties. I'm pretty positive about that. Great.
And then finally, I find it interesting that Siena has been polling the Democratic race, the different candidates against one another, but doesn't appear to be polling that on the Republican side, just doing favorable, unfavorable polling. Are you privy that you care to share with me any sort of polling you're aware of that shows how the three of you would be doing in a three-way race?
Sure. Well, we have one internal poll where we ended up doing the match race between the three of us. And it had actually, I think this is only a poll with myself and Lee, and it had me up 8 points. That's the only one that I've seen that has done the match race. Obviously, we'd welcome one from Siena. I'd welcome one from the congressman's team. We actually have heard, as I know, the congressman's pollster is the same as President Trump's pollster, one of his pollsters, I should say, Mr. McLaughlin. We've heard that they have put polling in the field, but they choose not to release it. I think that's very, very good for our candidacy, as anybody will know. If anybody who's running for political office chooses not to release a poll that they've commissioned, it's probably because the numbers are not very good for them.
Gotcha. All right. Any plans to be coming through the Binghamton area anytime soon?
Yes. Well, look, we're going to have petitioning starting up. As long as the maps get finished by the end of February, we'll have petitioning starting up very early March. So I'll be back. If I'm not back in Binghamton in February, then I will certainly be back in the first 2 weeks of March. And Jim, I will certainly let you know. And we'll be out collecting signatures all across the state. For us, it's a matter of getting 15,000 signatures and 100 signatures in at least half of the congressional districts. So we feel very confident looking at where we are in terms of the polling that we're going to be able to hit those numbers and then some.
Great. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add that I didn't think to ask?
No, I think for us, look, I have to say, I don't want to be a typical politician and just say, go Bills. I have to admit, I am a Giant fan, right? I grew up a Giant fan. season ticket holder. My father's a big Giant fan. So I am a big Giant fan, and you can jokingly say my team plays in New Jersey. But I will say I'm rooting for the Bills this week. And now that the Giants and the Jets can't get enough wins combined to make the playoffs,